Welcome to this video on automating Microsoft Dynamics 365 applications using Avo Assure. This automation on MS Dynamics 365 provides a comprehensive understanding of the automation process for MS Dynamics applications using the Avo Assure platform. By the end of this course, users will be able to identify the step-by-step process involved in automating MS Dynamics applications, describe how to utilize the element identifier feature in Avo Assure to prioritize element attributes during execution, illustrate best practices essential for ensuring a smooth and efficient automation experience with MS Dynamics on the Avo Assure platform. Now let's look at the scenario that is being automated. For the demo in this learning, we will automate MS Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. But before that, let's quickly take a look and understand the basic interface of MS Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation application. The table elements of MS Dynamics application consist of two parts. The upper half of the screen is known as header, where commands for the actions are provided. The bottom half of the screen is referred to as body, where the fetched out data gets reflected. In this scenario, the automation journey covers the entire purchase order lifecycle, from its creation to confirmation, receipt, and final verification of completion of the process. Ever wondered how a typical purchase order cycle process? Well, it all begins with the Create Purchase Order step, where procurement is initiated by entering essential details such as the vendor's name, item descriptions, quantities, and pricing. Next comes Verify Inventory Before PO, where on-hand stock is reviewed to confirm the need for additional items. This step ensures resources are being utilized effectively and orders are placed only when required. The next step in the process is confirming purchase order. At this stage, the purchase order is approved and finalized, confirming vendor terms, pricing, and item specifications. Following this is Receive Products, where the delivery is acknowledged by posting a product receipt. This step not only records the items received, but also updates inventory levels, ensuring real-time accuracy in stock management. Then comes Create and Post Invoice, where the vendor's invoice is matched against the confirmed purchase order and the recorded receipt. Once validated, the invoice is posted, officially recording the liability to the vendor. Finally, the process concludes with Process and Verify Payment, where the payment to the vendor is generated and posted. The transaction is then verified in the vendor's payment history, marking the successful completion of the purchase order cycle. Let's now watch a demo to understand the process of order to cash flow in detail. Start by selecting a created project form, the Project section in the Avo Assure. Click on the Design Studio button from the top right corner to navigate to the Element Repository window. Click the plus icon on the left pane and select Create New Folder from the options to create a folder. Rename the created folder with an appropriate name as a best practice. For this demo, let's name the folder as Workflow. Click the ellipses across the created folder and select the option Create a Folder to create another folder. Name the folder as Procure-to-Pay. Again, click the ellipses, hover the mouse on Create Repository option and select Web as application type to create an element repository for web-based AUT. Alternatively, users can also press a shortcut Shift+E+W on keyboard to create an element repository for web application. Name the repository as Create Purchase Order. Similarly, create all necessary repositories to store the required elements from the AUT for this automation process. Click the Capture Elements button from the center of the Element Repository workspace and select a browser from the options. For this scenario, let's select Microsoft Edge and select Capture button from the Select Browser pop-up. After clicking Capture button, Avo Assure Client Capture window launches. Elements are captured and displayed using the Client Capture window. Paste the copied URL in the Enter URL field as step 1 and click on the Navigate button on the Avo Assure Client Capture window to launch the AUT in the selected application. Next, select the Manual Radio button as Capture Type from the Capture Element option as step 2. This enables manually capturing the elements upon hover over, clicking the element on the AUT. This method provides full control on the capturing process, allowing only to capture the required elements. Users may also select Visible to instruct the client to auto-capture all the visible elements on the screen of the AUT. All to instruct the client to auto-capture all the visible as well as hidden elements of the AUT. Upon selecting Visible and All Capture method, users can use Capture Type dropdown to specify capturing a particular type of element, like a text box, table, actionable visible elements, etc., from the AUT. Similarly, when selecting Manual method, users can select Wait Time using the Delay dropdown to set a custom wait time before element capturing begins. Using this feature is particularly suggested when dealing with transient UI elements like pop-ups that disappear on interaction. So adding wait time prepares the AUT state, such as triggering a pop-up and capture elements without disruption. Once the users have selected the capture method, click on the capture button. Upon clicking the capture button, users will notice the state of capture button being changed to stop button. This button is used to stop the capturing process. Now, click on the elements that need to be captured. A point to note here is to make sure to navigate through the AUT in the same sequence as it would be done when manually performing the steps. This is to ensure that all the elements are captured in logical order. Click on the Stop button once an element is captured. This stops the capturing and display the captured elements on the Avo Capture window. Along with the captured element name, the identifies properties and attribute value associated with the elements can also be seen. A point to notice is that once an element is captured, Step 3, Verify and Add Elements, appears in the Avo Capture window. In this third step, the Locate checkbox allows users to quickly identify a specific element from the element pool. This is particularly useful when more than 4 to 6 elements are captured and stored in the Avo client window. Alongside Locate, there is a Delete and Add button that helps remove selected elements. The Add button, whereas saves the selected elements to the repository. Repeat the steps. Click the Capture button again to capture and add all the elements needed for this repository. Once captured, select the checkboxes of all the elements and click on the Add button to add them to the element repository. When capturing the elements, select Visible Radio button as Capture Element Type and Grid from the Capture Type drop-down to capture the grid visible on the AUT. Once added, all the captured elements can be seen on the Element Repository window of Avo Assure. In this window, users get the element list containing all the element name, their type, and screenshots associated to the elements. Now, let's create another element repository. Following the same steps, click the ellipses alongside the folder created to create more repositories. As needed for this project, next capture the relevant elements from the AUT required for this scenario. Verify the added element on the Element Repository window of Avo Assure and click Save. Once all the repositories are created and the elements are stored, verify the elements. A point to note here is that number count of all the elements added in this repository can be found in the right-hand side. Use the search feature to search for any element added in this repository. Once the elements are verified, click on the Save button to save them. The Add Element button can also be used to add more elements to this repository. So users can either capture elements from the AUT or manually create an element using the Create Manually option. Once all the tweaks are done as per the scenario, click on the Save button to save them to be used in the test cases. Now navigate to the Test Case tab. Click the plus icon on the left pane to create a folder. Name the folder as Workflow. Alternatively, users can also click the Create Folder button on the work pane or hit the Shift+F on the keyboard. Here again, they can create the folders using Avo Genius, the Smart Recorder, or manually. Click the Create Test Case button on the work pane and name the test case as Procure-to-Pay. Users may also click the ellipsis across the folder name, select Create Test Case from the context menu, or hit Shift+T on their keyboard to do the same. Please note, users can create multiple folders and test cases anytime by clicking the plus icon across the test cases folder structure. Next, click the Create Test Step Group button. This offers two options. One is to use Recorder, another is Add New Test Step Group. For this demo, let's select the second option and proceed manually. Now enter a name for the test step group as Create Purchase Order and select the application type as Web in the pop-up that appears. Once done, click Create. Let's now add test steps to the test step group. To do this, click Add from Repository option. Note that users can also select the Add Manually options to manually design the test steps. Upon clicking the Add from Repository option, all the elements stored in the repositories created for this project appear on the left. Drag and drop the captured elements from the repository to the workspace. Once the elements are added, the test step information is displayed with the step details like element, actions, input, and output values. Let's click the plus icon and add in a test step. Select an element and action for it. A point to mention here is that the input and output values can be edited as and when needed. Let's here add two steps. One is to open the browser and another is to navigate to the URL. Make sure to enter the URL as the input value of the second test step. Once done, click on the Save button. Do note the options available across each test step that appear when the mouse is hover over on it. It displays options to add or delete a test step, or click the ellipses to provide more details about it, such as descriptions and remarks on its expected result to determine its pass or failure. Use the drag handle to move the element to sequence them in right order. Please note that the Edit option can be chosen to edit the input and output values as needed. Click the plus icon below to the test steps to add another test step group. Enter a name for the group and choose its application type and then click Create to create it. Drag and drop elements in it. Following the same steps, add all the needed test step groups and test steps and save them all. Upon saving the test steps, a message stating, "You have now saved your test cases successfully," displays on the screen. Once all the test steps are designed and saved, click the Debug button from the top options. Select a browser and test step groups that is to be debugged, and lastly, click the Debug button from the Debug pop-up. This will debug the designed steps and show a confirmation button once done. Let's now see how elements are prioritized in Avo Assure using Element Identifier. So, first click on the existing element in the repository that needs to be prioritized and click the edit icon across selected element. Upon clicking the element, details appears where ID, names, their priority attribute, and values can be seen. Now in the CSS selector, use regular expressions instead of a fixed path to make the selector more flexible. Navigate to the AUT and locate that element to inspect it to define one. Click on the elements to open its sources. Now navigate back to Avo Assure's element repository. Enter class name. Note that a segment of the class name can then be used with a regular expression, for instance, class navlink. Copy the class name attribute and paste it in the CSS selector field within inverted commas to fix the value of CSS selector. After entering the selector, drag and rearrange the elements to prioritize them. Click on the Save Properties button. This saves the properties and prioritizes the mentioned element during execution. Once done, save the test case to debug it. To validate the setup, navigate to the Execution tab and select the relevant execution list and click Execute from the top right corner of the execution window. Before executing, ensure the client and browser configurations are in place. Upon running the execution, a confirmation message appears stating that the execution has started successfully. You also see the test case being run and the execution being performed as instructed to the Avo Assure client on the screen. Now, pull up the Avo Assure client to view and verify the results. Here, users can find the step containing the new element. confirming that it was successfully identified using the specified CSS selector. This further demonstrates that the dynamic element was accurately located through the use of regular expressions in the CSS selector. Next, navigate to the Execution tab. Click the plus icon from the Execution List pane and select Create New Folder. Rename the folder as Workflow. Click on the Create List button from the workspace to create an execution list. Let's name it as Procure-to-Pay. Next, click the Add Test Case S link at the bottom left corner or the Add Test Case button at the top. The Test Cases panel will pop up. Drag and drop the test case in the execution section. Users can add multiple folders and test cases just by dragging and dropping them. Upon selecting a test case for the created execution list, all the details like name, input value, and action on test case failure appears on the screen. This action can be chosen upon a test case's failure, added to an execution list using the On Failure drop-down fields. The execution profile type remains functional by default. Besides the details, the configuration pane also appears for the created execution list. If closed, this execution list can also be recalled using the configuration icon. Here, the desired test case can be selected for its execution arrangements, like the choice of client or agent, its name, choices of browser, test management tool, execution mode, and the option to receive notification post-execution. There is an eye icon, which displays information about the execution list, like description and audit logs when clicked. Let's now update the execution list's configuration details. Choose the execution mode as client. Search for and select an active Avo Assure client per user profile. Finally, select the browser for the execution list to be run on. Once done, click the Save button to save the execution list details or changes that has been made. Select the execution folder that needs to be run from the execution list pane on the left. A point to note here is that to execute an execution list, make sure to select the respective execution folder on the left pane. For this demo, select a folder with multiple execution lists. All of them within that folder will be reflected in a table with their name, recent execution data, and time, status, and recent execution summary. Users can choose one or more execution lists to execute from the table. Once chosen, they can decide to execute it now or schedule it for a later time. Here is the Schedule option, which allows users to plan test executions for a later date and time, with the added flexibility of setting the number of iterations. Upon selecting this option, a schedule pop-up appears, enabling users to specify a start date and time for the execution. They can also configure recurring runs by selecting the desired frequency. Additionally, users must define an end condition, either by setting an end date or by specifying the number of times the execution should occur. Once all parameters are configured, clicking the Schedule button finalizes the planned execution. To instantly run the execution lists, click Execute button. Upon clicking, Execute Now pop-up appears on the screen. Select either the Client or the Grid Radio button from the Execute On options. Let's select Client. Next, select a client with the available status from the drop-down list to perform the execution. Switch the execution mode to headless to run automation tests without launching the application's user interface for faster and resource-efficient testing. Switch on the toggle button to get the email notification on and provide receiver's email address, and select the On Radio button to provide the reports via email to the specified email IDs. Post-execution. Once done, select the browser to run the execution on from the browser's dropdown. Lastly, hit the Execute button. Now a confirmation message can be seen on the screen, notifying that the execution has begun. This will bring up the selected browser and run the design test steps in the execution list. Next, click the Reports tab at the top to navigate to the Reports page. It's important to note that the folders and execution lists created under the Execution tab in the Design Studio are automatically populated here. Simply select the desired execution list to view its corresponding report. Here, the execution details like Run No, displaying the number of times the chosen list has been executed, can be found. It also shows the date and time, status, summary, and other details for the executed list. Now, click the test case details icon to bring up the Run Details panel. It displays the test case name and status of its execution to confirm if it has passed or failed. It also has options to view reports, clicking which opens a new page displaying the detailed stepwise information of the test case executed, in addition to a result summary at the top. It includes the details for each test step in the executed test case, like status, step details, time elapsed, defect management, etc. Click the little arrow across the step and expand the details for each. Here, users can check the Recovered By column to view the identifiers as CSS Selector and Absolute XPath, used by the Avo Assure client for element identification during the execution. Lastly, to perform defect management, click the bug icon to log a bug. Clicking the eye icon from the action column displays a screenshot of the AUT for each step performed during the execution, respectively. Now, navigate back to the Report tab and click the Downloads icon. 3 download options appear: JSON, PDF, and PDF with screenshots. Click on the option to download report in that format. Once downloaded, click Open from the pop-up to open and view it. Once done, close the View Details and click Downloads icon. A pop-up requesting export level and file type will appear. Please note that an executive summary of the report can only be downloaded in a PDF format, while a detailed report can be downloaded either in PDF or JSON format. Click the Download button after confirming a report choice. The chosen report format will be available for perusal and sharing in the Downloads folder of the local machine. Now that the process of automating the MS Dynamics application using Avo Assure is clear, let's take a look at some best practices to ensure smoother execution. Use Microsoft Edge as the preferred browser for better compatibility and performance during automation. Implement wait actions to effectively manage synchronization issues that may arise during execution. Incorporate alternate actions while designing test steps to avoid unexpected errors or interruptions. For instance, use send function keys instead of relying solely on click actions when interacting with screen elements. Follow proper naming conventions for all scenarios and test step groups. Align them with the business flow to make it easier to locate and manage them within the repository. Well done! With this, you have come to an end of this automation scenario where you learned the step-by-step process to automate Procure-to-Pay flow in MS Dynamics 365 application and learned about a few essential elements required for this automation.